This is chapter 7 of Poppy. Chapter 7 is called Home Again. Poppy and her father did not talk on the long way back home. Only occasionally did she say, "Watch out for the puddle, Papa," or "Won't be long now," but that was all. Lungwort walked along with his head down, eyes glued to his feet, and he kept uttering sighs. Everybody sigh. Now and then he reached up to touch his hat, just to be sure it was there. Once, after stealing a look at Poppy, a look that she caught him looking, he let out something like a moan. Everybody moan. Oh. Poppy was fearful of asking her father the questions that she kept asking herself. If Mr. Oakhax refused permission for the move, and he had, or if there was not enough food, and her father said that that was true, then what was the family to do? Would some of them have to forage for distant places out in the open? That meant that they'd have to be at the mercy of Mr. Oakhax, and a complete calamity. Poppy peeked again at Ragweed's earring. She kept asking herself why she had ever gone to the hill with Ragweed without asking for permission. She knew better. Look at all the trouble that she'd caused. Just then she hated herself for having loved Ragweed. But just to think that thought made her heart ache. Here's a picture. Rain was still falling when they reached Grey House. Both mice were soaked and exhausted. The once white flag trailed along in the mud behind. A large number of mice were milling down on the porch, waiting for the expected good news. Sure enough, when Poppy and Lungwort appeared, a cheer went up. The sound brought Lungwort to a dead halt. The old house stared blankly at the rows of eager faces. A second cheer began, but faded as the onlookers could sense that something was wrong. Silent and grim-faced, eyes averted. Averted means looking away, like if you're looking straight ahead and then you look away. Lungwort painfully climbed the Grey House steps. Alarmed into silence, the mice backed away and they let him pass. Poppy saw her mother break through the crowd. "Lungwort," she cried. "Oh, my dear, what has happened?" Lungwort lifted sad eyes, and without a word he continued on into the house, retreating to his boot study and drawing the curtain behind him for privacy. For a moment, sweet Cicely stared after her husband, but then she dashed into the boot right after him. Only then did the others notice that Poppy had been standing there. She had been standing alone, quite ignored. Now they surrounded her and they pelted her with questions. "What's happened? Poppy, what happened? Is there something the matter? What's wrong with Lungwort? What did Mr. Oakhax say? Please tell us." Poppy, not sure of how to reply, remained silent, and finally she held up her paw. That was her father's gesture for silence. The mice responded as they always did, and they grew very quiet. Swallowing hard, Poppy said, "Mr. Oakhax refused permission for anyone to move." Like air escaping from a balloon, there was a collective gasp from the audience. But a torrent of questions followed. "What did Mr. Oakhax say? Didn't Lungwort explain our situation? What are we supposed to do now? Did the owl give us any reason?" Poppy lifted a paw again. Once the crowd had stilled, she confessed very softly. "Mr. Oakhax said that it was because Ragweed and I didn't ask permission to go to Bannock Hill. She had hoped for a chorus, or at least one mouse, who would say, 'That's not fair,' or 'How absurd!' But no such word was spoken. Alarmed, Poppy looked around. Some eyes avoided hers. Others showed sorrow. Quite a few darted angry glares at her. "You'll have to excuse me now," she murmured, quite shaken. "I need to get myself dry." A narrow passage was made for her to pass. As she entered the house, she felt a nudge from behind. Alarmed, she jumped. It was Basil. "This way," he whispered. He led her to an isolated room. "Dry yourself," he said. "I'll get you something hot." Placing Ragweed's earring to one side, Poppy began licking her fur dry. By the time she was done, Basil returned with an acorn of steaming mashed rye. Despite her upset, Poppy ate ravenously, grateful for the warmth that seeped through her body. Basil listened intently to Poppy and how she told of the meeting with Mr. Oakes. "And look what I found!" She held up Ragweed's earring. Basil took it carefully. Where was this? It was sticking out of one of Mr. Oakes's owl pellets. "Oh, this makes me sick," he uttered. After a while, he said, "Poppy, what's going to happen next?" Poppy sighed. "I thought that it would have been impossible to feel worse than I did when Ragweed died. But I was wrong. This is worse. So many will suffer. And guess who's being blamed for it all? Me." Wearily, Poppy made her way to the attic. She wanted to be alone. Amid Farmer Lamont's clutter, she came across a tin can a while ago that was shaped like a house. "Log Cabin Syrup," the label read. After cleaning out the inside to a shiny newness and lining it with her favorite old magazine bits, Poppy considered this to be her own room. Now she patted down a wad of filmy lace. This was her pillow. And she crept beneath a blanket, which was a crocheted doily. Curled up into a tight ball, she tucked in her paws and wrapped her tail around her, tucking its tip right below her nose. Never ever had she been so worn out. Even so, she still could not sleep. She kept hearing Mr. Oakes say that he was refusing permission for family members to move because she and Ragweed, had not asked him if they could even go to Bannock Hill. Then, too, there was his hint that he would change his mind if he would sacrifice herself, or if she would sacrifice herself. She was so glad she had not mentioned that to the family, rather suspecting that some of them would have urged her to do it. The mere hint of such a thing gave Poppy the horrors. She drew herself into a tighter ball. Harder to deal was her own mouth's inner voice. It kept insisting to her, what if she and Ragweed had done what she had done was the reason for keeping others from moving and being safe? Maybe she should sacrifice herself. At that point, a tear trickled down her face, rolled to the end of a whisker, and dropped onto her pillow. Oh, she thought, if only Ragweed were here, he would have something to say. But what? She asked, trying to cheer herself up. Most likely a question, a backward one, just like the one that he had asked Lungwort, how Mr. Oakes could confuse huge porcupines with small deer mice. Even as she thought about Ragweed's asking, Poppy realized that her father never did give the answer. She wondered why. Poppy forced herself back to the problem. Mr. Oakes said he was refusing permission because of something she and Ragweed had done. How would Ragweed have turned that around? What would he have said? Poppy could almost hear it. Ragweed would have said, "What did refusing permission allow Mr. Oakes to do?" Just asking herself this question, because it lifted some of the burden from her, gave Poppy a sense of encouragement. Well then, what did refusing permission allow Mr. Oakes to do? Poppy tried to remember exactly what occurred when her father finally came to his point and requested permission for the move. Slowly but clearly it came back. When Lungwort asked the question, Mr. Oakes became flustered. He seemed unsure about something connected with Newhouse. That is, he didn't ask Lungwort about the move. He asked if he had ever been to the new house. In fact, he actually asked that question twice. Or maybe it was 3 times. The point was, the moment Lungwort said that he had not been to New House, that was when Mr. Oakes said no. But it was not, Poppy recalled, "No, you cannot move." Rather, it was, "No, you cannot move to New House." And remember, New House is the name of that second house. Well then, what did refusing permission allow Mr. Oakex to do? It allowed him to keep the mice away from New House. Poppy sat up. Was it possible that there was something there at New House that Mr. Oakex wanted to keep hidden from them? Was that the real reason for his refusal? The idea so excited Poppy that she felt like rushing downstairs to tell Lungwort. She started to get up, only to stop herself. If she had hit upon the real reason for Mr. Oakex's refusal, there was but one way that she could prove it. She would have to go to New House and see what was there. And she could hardly ask Mr. Oakex permission to do that. I don't care, Poppy said aloud, making a fist with one paw. I will do it. I will. With a sigh of exhaustion, Poppy finally fell asleep. But it was not a restful sleep. She kept dreaming that she was lost. And worse, no matter where she turned for help, she only saw eyes, Mr. Oakex's eyes. They were always just above and behind her. Here's the picture. That concludes chapter 7. Next is chapter 8. I miss you.